Hey now, welcome to the dirty side of the track, America's leading Formula One podcast. I'm Brian, that's Rob. We just walked in our homes, respectively, from the Canadian Grand Prix. Could not have had more fun, could not be more tired. Cannot wait to talk about it. Rob, how are you, man?
I'm good. I'm running on fumes, and we're just going to see how long the post-race adrenaline lasts before I'm absolutely out for the count. So if I go quiet halfway through this podcast and you just see me fall, just just take it home, Brian. I
Done.
won't be getting back up again.
Done, done, done. And for any new listeners, because we did run into folks at the track and we're always gathering new listeners, this will be a slightly different race review than normal. Normally we do a more traditional race review. This will be sort of through the eyes of Rob and Brian. So enjoy. It's going to be awesome. We'll have some top tips along the way for things to do in Canada. But we'll start, as always, with news and social. Rob, do you want to kind of kick us off here?
Yeah, we're going to have to be a little bit apologetic on this one because we were preparing to go to Canada, so we didn't really spend as much time surfing the web, but we've kind of got a couple of stories.
Couple stories.
The new 2026 calendar was announced. They've kind of rejigged it, given another go at it. Canada's shifted to May next year, which kind of makes sense because now I think it's on the coattails of Miami and this side of the pond, right? Rather than go all the way over to Europe, then come back over here for Canada and then go
It
back over to
is.
Austria again.
I will say this: it is the only 2 week break in the entire calendar, other than summer break. It is the only 2 week break in the calendars between Miami and Canada. So you may say, well, what good is that? The good is they don't have to ship all of the equipment back overseas. So all of the freight can stay in the North American region. The people could go home, but that is the only 2 week break. The calendar looks great, man. There's a lot of double headers. We end on two triple headers, and then obviously the summer break. So I'm looking forward to it, and we welcome Madrid to the calendar, so that'll be fascinating.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating. Let's not
Yeah, we're not going to
be
buy tickets.
pessimistic until
Yeah,
we've seen it, right?
yeah,
So it'll be one to look forward to and make our mind up when we see it in action. A bit like Vegas and Miami. They both turned out. Vegas has really won me over,
me
and
too.
Miami seems to be getting better year on year.
Yeah,
So while I'm
Miami I
very,
did not like
very,
in the beginning, but it
I know
grew
you
on
didn't.
me. Yeah,
Yep. And all I was very skeptical when I saw the images of this Madrid track. Let's see cars racing there first, and
yeah,
then we can
agreed.
decide if it's rubbish.
I agree. The FIA has granted Red Bull Jr. Arvid Lindblad a super license prior to his 18th birthday. Interestingly, he turns 18 on August 8th, so we're doing this for 6 weeks' time. That the petition was done for before he turns 18. And apparently, the World Council found that the drivers recently and consistently demonstrated outstanding ability and maturity in single-seater Formula Car competition. So, Rob, do you make anything of this? I don't.
No, I have no real clue. That it just seemed a bit of a. And then people were coming out saying, "Oh, they're just doing it for Max," and they were like, "No, no, it was put in place. They submitted the petition before that, so
Yeah.
it just seems like random. They really think they're going to need him for that crucial 6 week period before he actually turns 18. Maybe they will. Who knows? Who knows?
One quick note, I would like to just personally say a shout out. My father ended up briefly in the hospital this last week, and a couple of the nurses found out I was going to the race. And in case they or their families are listening, shouts out to Rachel, Lacey, Anita, and Nicole, and many others on the care team. But those four I got a chance to chat with extensively. And if you're listening, subscribe.
And I will just say, like we kind of played it down and tried to do our midweek predictions as normal as possible. But there was a real point last week when we were like, not sure Brian's going to be in Canada because your dad was in a bad way, but seeing you send the message, I'm in, baby, and I was picking you up from the airport made me doubly happy because A, it meant the podcast team rides again, but more than that, it meant your dad was well enough that you could actually
Yeah,
come.
thanks,
So it was
brother.
a double
Thank
a
you.
double win.
It was, it
So
was, it was. And it allowed me to celebrate in Canada that he was home. And did we celebrate in Canada? We celebrated in Canada, baby. You'll hear very shortly some of the content from our time in Canada, and it is interesting. I have no video vault because I haven't been around. So let's just talk about the time in Canada, shall we? Let's jump into where we need to be. Um,
yeah, so I
Go ahead.
think the way we'll do this is almost like a Pitlane Paul review, where he sort of takes us through Friday in no particular order, takes us through Saturday in no particular order, and then talks through Sunday in kind of an order because he ends up on the race. I think that's what we'll do. We'll just kind of do our. It's fresh in our mind. We've just got home. This is our Canadian diary that as we remember it, and not all facts might be correct or in the right order, but we'll give it a shot.
Right. And as we said already, this is not our normal race review. So for stats we screw up, for things we missed, well, we're doing our best, and we had a wonderful time. So,
Yeah, there's a little disclaimer to put in on the race
yeah,
review.
exactly.
We took zero notes. We don't really remember what happened, but we'll sort it when we get there.
So Friday, I'm a believer in sort of the way things happen. It leads to the way the day unfolds. And I had to get up at the crack of crack dawn and get out there to the airport at O'Hare. The TSA pre-line was around the building. It was 5:45 in the morning, and I didn't move for 30 minutes. And I texted Rob. I go, I may not make it. And I've flown a lot in my life. I mean, thousands of times. I don't call it like this unless it looks dire. I barely made it through. And then they were taking bags. As I got there, they'd already started boarding. They were taking bags. They looked at my backpack. I'm like, no, 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 no. I need to run right out of the airport and, get into the car. And they looked and they said, oh, you can squish it in. And I said, this day's turning around already. And I knew from that moment when I made the plane and kept my bag, I said, this is going to be an extraordinary day. And the whole weekend was extraordinary.
It was brilliant, but I felt a bit like maybe what Paul was feeling like when he told us about that Braun when he was driving the truck down to Spain, and he had to stop halfway and phone up to say, so have we got enough money to keep going? Well, my halfway, I was on the road. I was a couple of hours in when all of a sudden you start pinging me, I might not make my flight. I was like, do I keep going? Do I need to pull over and wait to see if you've made it? Because there's no point me driving to Montreal Airport if you're not going to be there. So, yeah, when you finally ping through, I was still driving, and the CarPlay doesn't show you what the message is, so it just pinged up Brian Saperstein. I was like, oh no, what's this? What's this? So I kind of had to wait until I could safely look at my message, and it was like, I made the plane. I was like, yes.
It was epic. The girl in front of me bought a Clear subscription to try to make her plane. We were doing whatever we could. But so Rob picks me up at the airport. We go to the Airbnb, drop off our stuff, and go immediately in an Uber to the Metro and onto the track. And top tip number one, buy your Metro pass for all 3 days. We, some reason, didn't do this in 23 just because we didn't understand or didn't know. You do not want to be buying Metro tickets more than once. So buy a 3-day pass for Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
You more than that. You do not want to be buying a ticket on the way out of the circuit with
Never.
8 million people all trying to buy a ticket at the same time. So if you've got one, yeah, definitely. And we were both saying that this time we kind of arrived while it was still really, really super exciting. We didn't feel as much kind of sensory overload as when we went the first time. So we thought we're going to drink this in a little bit more. We're going to be able to enjoy it. We're veterans now. We know exactly what's going on. Or so we thought. The moment we stepped out of the metro station and confidently strode left to head towards our seats, we were met by a fence, a massive fence, because apparently after last year, there was a big sort of outcry that they'd mismanaged the whole thing and it was terrible. They took that to heart big time, and they went and bought all the fences that are in stock from fence manufacturers globally.
Unbelievable.
And positioned them everywhere to just make this kind of rabbit warren of fences that you needed to walk through. Now, in their credit, we never once stood in line and waited in the searing sun at all. They did set it up in a way that you were just constantly moving. And even by the time you got to the ticket line to have your bag rummaged through and show your ticket, we were never standing in line. So it kind of worked. It just, when you'd been there before and you know that you could just look to the left and say, I just want to go up that hill. And then I'm there. But we'd walk 3,000 miles. I think my fitness tracker went off both days that I'd done my daily step count before we even got in through the ticket machine, which was crazy.
Yeah. Amazing. I think we did 22 miles on the weekend we counted last night?
Something like that. That's what my Garmin said, yeah. So anyway, we got to our grandstand number one, and this was Brian's big moment of fear because he'd been a right Debbie Downer. Because we were down at the first or second row, for some reason, this was going to be bad and we wouldn't be able to see anything. Because I think in his mind's eye, he remembered the fence or the wall being higher than it was. So I think he had this view of us being trapped behind concrete and not being able to see anything.
No, it was the fence. It was the catch fence. And I was worried we'd have so much of it in our view that I still remember, we were up higher in row P last time. And I remember being able to see more clearly the chicane into the Wall of Champions. Not great, but better. So I think we did lose a little bit of like far end visibility. You don't think
So
so?
I don't think we did, because
I
every
do.
time we could lean forward and look to the left, and you could see
Yeah.
clearly the cars approach the hairpin, turn left and shimmy, and then we lost them for about a second maybe
Yeah, the
while they were
chicane, not the
accelerating out of
hairpin.
the.
Not all the way down at the hairpin. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, not the hairpin. We've seen them come through the chicane, past the wall of champions, and then we'd lose them out of our line of sight. I don't think it was any difference to last time, but what was different was just the. You wouldn't have thought that that number of rows forward made any difference whatsoever, but being able to feel the wind off the cars as they went past, it was just amazing to be that close to it. I just couldn't believe it.
They kept playing the clip of Lewis saying how amazing the fans in Canada are, partially because how close they are to the track at many points. And the announcers, Meeker and Jean Francois, kept playing this up that we had to cheer and clap and so forth. And when the first set of really high speed FP1 runs were done, I looked at Rob and I said, the security guard standing between our grandstand fence and the catch fence is about 5 to 10 feet away from an F1 car going 200 miles an hour. And granted, he's inside the catch fence, but I'm like, that's really close. And like at one point, he set down his his ear plugs. I'm like, the wind could suck those onto the track, buddy. You better hold on to those. So it was so amazing. The seats were great. And speaking of seats, just quickly, the Canadian renewal apparently goes out on Mondays. And Rob, for your benefit, our tickets went up about $150 a seat, American,
Oh, nice.
with a good exchange rate. So it is a lot more. It's $300 more collectively with the current exchange rate. So, which is favorable given when we bought it before. So not great. Everyone's tickets went up pretty significantly, but I guess it could have been worse. Question?
Yeah, I mean, especially when we were talking to people that have been to other races in the US, it's still nowhere near comparable
Right.
to Austin and stuff like that.
And that's why they're going to keep raising the prices. They'll find that
Yeah,
equilibrium eventually
exactly.
where people tap out.
So we sat like giddy school kids watching practice. Paul will tell us that practice is boring, but for us that don't see it very often, it's still cool to see the cars go past. Then we watched something that we didn't really see last time.
Or
I think it
didn't
was
notice.
the Ferrari last time, or we didn't notice, or maybe we didn't attend it. But this time we attended and watched the Cup North America practice session. And oh my gosh, I now can't even begin to imagine how loud the V10 era must have been, because these Porsches absolutely like knocked the spots off the F1 cars, which I find amazing. Like you literally felt like your teeth rattle in your jaw as they went past. It was, and they were obviously notably much slower. I think, what was it, like 20 seconds a lap or something?
Yeah, 23 seconds a lap difference.
But wow, those things were beasts. So kind of watched that. Then before we went to FP2, we decided to go and get parted from a lot of our cash by going and buying $11 Heinekens. Thanks Heineken for overpricing small cans, but it's hot. We're thirsty. We needed beer, so
It worked.
we went and started drinking some beer, and we found some shade down by the lake, and we bumped into two guys. So we got to give a shout out here. We have to give a shout out to Matt and Keith. Well, Matt apparently is known more widely as F1 Mullet Guy because he has a magnificent mullet, and it held up a sign. I think he got Valtteri's attention. Was it a Canada race? I don't remember which race he said now. I didn't write it down. But he'd held up a sign and he'd got Valtteri's attention, and they'd actually, he'd waved, and that's it. Valtteri is his hero, and he said, if you see him, get a message for me. And we were like, well, we probably can't do that, but we've got the next best thing. Kinda.
This is Valtteri Bottas, and you're listening to the dirty side of the track.
I thought you were done talking.
I was going to say, here you go, just for you, Matt, and then you go and butcher it and press it too quickly, but there we go. So anyway, Matt and Keith, they were great guys to hang out with. They've been to loads of races. They've been to Austin multiple times, and just great. It's like we said last time, you can just basically pick up a beer and turn to whoever is next to you and just start talking F1 without any shadow of a doubt that they're an F1 fan.
Exactly. And another top tip. Here comes, what is it, top tip 3? I don't know what we're at. So first of all, as Rob said, everybody, once again, all the other fans are so fantastic. We were under this small tent looking for some shade. There was a woman at a park bench next to us, a picnic bench next to us, and her compatriot left, and she had some extra space, and she welcomed us to join the bench with her. And we said, thank you. And then more people came over and she welcomed them to join the bench. And then she looked at us. I looked at her food. I said, that looks great. What is that? And it was a piece of pizza they'd rolled up, kind of calzoned it themselves. And she goes, would you like one? And I'm like, what? Really? I'm like, no, thank you, but that's so kind and
I was
generous.
to say, and that wasn't even something that she stayed in line for 50 million years to queue up at one of the little vendors. That was like some proper homemade pizza. That was looking pretty good.
It looked good.
I was a little bit disappointed when you turned it down, to be honest, because once you'd done that, I couldn't then wade in and go, oh, I'll have one. So thanks for that, Sap.
So then we met Matt and Keith, and I have a quick story, top tip 3 coming. And then I had to put some sunscreen on, and a fella in the back goes, hey, can I borrow your sunscreen? I'm like, of course you can. So that's the kind of like vibe. It was just everybody chatting, having a good time. We talked to Matt, we talked to Keith, and we learned top tip number 3. If you want to give it a try, Canada is a good place to apparently smuggle.
Well, wait, if you're going to go down the story, you can't tell the story. He said we couldn't put it on air.
Oh, did he say that?
Yeah. I'm going to stop you right there. I've got you, Matt. Don't worry. We can't tell top tip number 3.
Okay,
we're going to have to put that
here's
on
what
ice.
it would have been. Okay, top tip number 3. You'll have to reach out to us directly. Matt and Keith, you guys rock. So we go back to FP2. And one thing we didn't talk about from FP1 that grabbed us so much throughout all 3 practice sessions were the practice starts. And because we were so close, we were in the second row, which, yes, my overthinking was concerned about, turned out to be great. The practice starts. Oh my God, they were right in front of us because we were on the home, the start-finish straight about 3 garages up from the line.
Grid box 12. We were grid box 12.
Grid box 12, exactly. We were right in front of George's garage. So if you ever look at where things were, we were right across from it in the second row. Did Valtteri come outside and look around and wave to people and wave directly to us? And did Rob and I be like, he recognized us? Did he? Probably no.
No, definitely saw us wave. We waved back, and then as others waved, he courteously returned the wave to other people. But that was a wave to us to start with.
I think
definitely.
so.
100%.
100%. But so
we had, like you said,
yeah,
when Charles came in and we all stopping at different places, and because they're not lining up in grid order, it's kind of just a lucky dip as to which one you got. And when Charles just came and parked whatever it was, 15 feet in front of us.
15 feet.
That was just you could just see him. You could see him playing with the steering wheel. I've never been that close to a live action F1 driver.
No.
In the midst of doing the practice start. It was just you could see so much. It was amazing.
And the people sitting around us were fantastic. Not just the park bench, not just Matt and Keith, not just the sunscreen guy and everyone else we talked to, but there was 3 other F1 fans sitting right in front of us in the first row. And there was a guy in a Red Bull hat, and I didn't catch his name, and a V-carb.
We didn't catch any of their names.
V-carb shirt. There was a girl in the middle in the Ferrari, Charles fan, and then a Charles fan on the right, a guy, Charles fan. And they were phenomenal. We were chatting with them a lot, and the guy on the right, Ferrari fan, man, got the greatest video of inside Charles's cockpit as he was getting ready to do the launch. And we were trying to airdrop it, and we couldn't get it to work. Again, Rob and I were under the influence of some Heinekens at this point, and it was hot out, and you could barely see your phone screens. But to the 3 folks, because we did eventually tell them we had a podcast, the shirts we were wearing kind of gave it away. We told them, so if you're listening, you guys rocked. We loved having you as neighbors, and the people to the left and right of us as well.
Well, we clicked with the people in front because we realized we both laughed and took almost offense at exactly the same thing that we clocked. That directly across from us, on the top story of the Paddock Club, a young lady came out, stood against the balcony, was kind of doing this sort of weird pose, and I nudged Sap. I said, what's she doing? And then we noticed that there was another woman behind her taking pictures of her. She was gazing out into the distance to kind of get some kind of, I guess, Instagram shot. And once they'd done 3 or 4 of them with different poses and different hair swishes and whatever, turned around, went back inside, didn't watch a minute of FP1 or 2. And me and Brian made a joke about it, and the 3 in front were laughing along and turned around and said, did you see that as well? It was that was our bonding moment. We were essentially mocking these people because deep down we were extremely jealous because their view over there was amazing.
Well, it was, and we'll get more to things like on Sunday in a second. But that Friday, that attractive woman who did nothing other than take one photo leaning over the railing. Top tip number 4, don't be that person who goes all the way to the race for 4 seconds of an Instagram photo and then calls it a day. Don't do that. Brought to you by The Dirty Side.
So that was free practice 1 and 2. At this point, I think we're sort of wondering what's going on with McLaren, although I think, if memory serves me right, Lando was up there after FP2. Or was
FP2 was close. He was
FP3
second or something.
close,
He was
okay.
near the top, yeah.
But, McLaren, Mercedes were looking
Looked
good.
good. Williams.
Max had more pace than we expected. Williams were right up there. I think with the giddiness of the day, we completely forgot the entire rule of it's only practice. So we got completely.
You wait till you hear what Brian did. Yeah. So come back on Saturday when I put my fantasy team in.
Yeah, exactly. So that kind of we had F1 Academy as well, qualifying session. It was just a jam-packed, having the F1 Academy in there as well. Just
so good.
It was great to have them there, and I really like seeing the F1 Academy cars with the F1 liveries on as well. It just adds something. It makes feels like they're taking that series more seriously. So that was just great. So you just got an action-packed day, even though Paul will write off Fridays as just practice. For us mere mortals, we had free practice 1 and 2. We had F1 Academy. We missed the first F1 Academy because we didn't get to the track in time. Yep. And we saw the Porsche session as well. So action-packed day with all the little gaps in between filled with Heineken. And then off we went into downtown Montreal to meet up with Paul on Friday night in the same Irish bar as we did last time. So that was real cool. It was just great hanging out with him and drinking beers.
Yeah, we were out way too late. I won't put a time on it.
Oh, yes.
We
were out way too late or way too early, whichever way you want to.
Oh, it was early, but it was late early. And so we did, as tradition holds, record a new 3-person Hey Now. However, we forgot to do this until a little later in the night, and I'm only going to play the first attempt. And then Rob probably has a little story to tell about me. If Paul doesn't, I'll let them do it because it's fair. But here is the first set of Hey Nows. And there's a little music we'll turn it down.
Just start playing. It's about 8 seconds of,
Yeah, so there.
Great live music in this bar as always, though.
Great live music. Fantastic. We had a wonderful time. Here it is.
Brian's one drink behind, but hey now! Don't listen to Paul. Hey now! Hey now!
Yours sounded a little rough there, Rob. So was mine, as I got roasted by Paul.
Well, we'll have to see what turns up in his review later. We'll see.
All right.
I'm going to just say nothing right now. We'll roll through the rest of this, and we'll head on to what would it be? Saturday, qualy day.
Yes.
So we were kind of looking forward to FP3, and Saturday we had the first. Academy race was a makeup race for a cancelled one.
Correct.
That was at 9:15 in the morning. That was only a few hours after we'd rolled in, so it's fair to say we did not see that race. We did not see that race. We got there for midway through the Porsche qualifying session. It's also fair to say that because of those aforementioned really loud Porsches and my head from the previous night, I didn't enjoy the Porsche race on Saturday as much as I done on Friday.
I will say this is my second, or actually third time at a Grand Prix of different pieces of it. I've never once wanted to wear earplugs. I actually put them in during the Porsche race, partially because of the cars, partially because the speaker right in front of our faces was turned up to 11 the whole time. And when they were playing techno music and then the Porsches were going by, I'm like, I can't. And I could still hear things. I felt so old, but I looked around me and like 7 out of 10 people in our section down there for the Porsche piece of the race had ear protection on. I'm like, yeah, that's probably smart. That was the only time I used it. Didn't use it during F1, didn't use it during Academy, but that was so loud and we were so close. And the music and the speaker, dear God, I want to unplug it.
I'm just wondering if it was the Saturday morning after the Friday night before that lots of people had arrived on Saturday with heads that maybe weren't ready.
I didn't need Tylenol, I needed earplugs.
So anyway, we had that. Then FP3 came along, and Merck still looking good. But now I think this was the one where Lando was up there as well. Okay, have McLaren been sitting on some pace, sandbagging, doing the long runs instead, and now they're going to come and blow us away in FP3. But didn't really happen. They were up there. Piastri struggled, like we said, all through all 3 practice sessions. Never saw any kind of lightning pace there. And we sat at the end of FP3 and we went and found some shade because we had the second race was coming up to the F1 Academy. We wanted to see that, but we needed to get out of the sun because we're both very weak when it comes to sitting under scorching sun. And we sat and we looked at each other and we said, we're going into qualifying and I could not tell you out of maybe 6 drivers who I'm going to back for pole here. because George was looking spicy. We know Max could do it. We know either of the McLaren boys could do it. Ferrari were threatening some kind of pace. Just there, we've got like 6 odd drivers. And I mean, I've never sort of, for a long time, have gone in and been that unsure as to who was going to be on pole. And that's when you sat down and started making your fantasy selections.
Oh, boy. We'll talk about that in the fantasy section. It did not work for me. I sat under a tree. I bounced my ideas off Rob, and he let me go do some dumb things. I think he did it on purpose. I will say that because Rob's a good wingman. When we were at a bar on Sunday night, I said we were going to get some shots. I said anything but tequila, and Rob goes, tequila, please. And we had many rounds of it. So thanks, buddy. But yeah, no, the fantasy thing messed me up. We didn't talk about Charles's crash. We didn't talk about Lance's crash in practice. Those were obviously not great. But it was fascinating to kind of watch the teams rebuild the cars. We had watched the pit stops happen. Like you said, FP3 left us wondering who's where, who's going to be good or not, who's going to have that pace at the front. Williams was still spicy. And so I did, some analysis. I went on fantasytools.com, who is in our league. I went on some time on Adam's page, on Rob's page, and I sat there and I used all my data searching my fantasy team, and I screwed up. I made a really bad decision, and I'm in double digits. But we'll hold on to that for a second, because then we got to quali.
Well, we did, but before we got to quali, we had the F1 Academy race.
Oh, yes.
And we both looked, I don't know whether it was here or later or whenever we came up with this, but we just watched some of these 3 wide at the hairpin.
Yes.
2 wide coming through the chicane into the Wall of Champions, and went, this is how you fix Monaco. You make the F1 drivers drive the Academy cars because they are noticeably smaller. There was so much overtaking, so much side by side. Now, that also meant that because they stayed quite close together, we had quite a lot of contact.
We had quite a lot
Just
of
going to say that.
Yeah, but it was nice to see Sauber. Was the woman's name Felbermeyer, who won her first race on the podium? So excited, and to see a Sauber on the top step of a podium was disorienting. But it was really cool to see that. I was cheering on Leah Block the whole time. Whenever she was on the grid, I was fanboying and yelling, "Go, Leah!" So it was awesome to see the Academy and to watch the race. The races were really good, as Rob said. I think you're onto it, man. I think you qualify in the F1 cars, and then you get in the grid in the Academy cars and let them go after it, wheel to wheel, and see what happens in Monaco. I think that would make Monaco better.
So then, like you say, quali came around, and we were just like super excited for this one to see what was going to happen. Biggest shock, I think, of Q1 was Sainz not making it through. Because the Williams had just looked so
How does
spicy.
Meeker say it? The track TV guy?
Oh,
Sainz.
Sainz?
Yeah.
Sainz. We only had 2 pronunciations this time. Obviously, there's no Magnussen this year. We had Sainz and Oliver Behrman. Apparently, his last name is spelled Burrman because he was Berman, and he kind of exaggerated the as well, which was, it's funny. But I mean, everybody else there, like Bortoletto, Stroll, Lawson was probably a shot. Gasly was definitely a shot.
Sainz.
But Sainz was the one because he just looked so quick.
Yeah,
and did he get impeded? I can't remember if he got impeded or not. But even if he did get impeded on one run, he should have got another run in that was quick enough.
It was Hajar, though, and we love Isaac, and we'll get to that on race day in a second. But he was told, at least we saw on our phones, that he was told at first Carlos was on a hot lap and then not. So he didn't get out of the way when he thought he wasn't on a hot lap. That's what our understanding is, and that's what we heard over the track TV. But yeah, obviously a 3-place grid penalty coming Isaac's way, which we appreciated because, hint, hint, he's going to start the Grand Prix 12th. Hint, hint, 15 feet right in front of us. We'll get to that more, though, when we get to Sunday.
And then Q2 was a bit of a blur. I know we had a lot of Argentinian fans in the crowd. Everywhere you look, somebody was wearing a Messi shirt. So they were very disappointed to see Franco go out in Q2. Yuki got nudged out. Hulkenberg, Berman, and Ocon joined him. So that kind of set us up that all those people that we've been thinking about that were in for a shot for pole, none of them put a foot wrong. Although Fernando suddenly looked like Adrian Newey has been putting some extra duct tape in places to make the Aston go quicker, because suddenly that was looking really spicy as well.
It did. It reminded me of 23 when we were there, and he got third on the podium. And we had the all-time podium of Fernando, Lewis, Max, and Adrian Newey. And we watched that podium live, and I'm thinking, oh my God, are we going to get Fernando on the podium again here? Because Lance, bottom. Fernando, top. And like, how is it so different in the same car?
So as it unfolded, again, this is a blur because it was all just adrenaline and emotion. But as things went through, I remember Fernando put in a good lap that put him quite high up. Lando never seemed to really knit one together, and he needed a big final lap, and that never materialized. Did we get Oscar go top, then Max took it?
Yes.
And we were pretty sure that was that until one Mr. George Russell came flying around shouting, "Hold my beer," and just absolutely nailed it. We've been watching the lap times come down all sessions, and we freaked out when they dipped into the 111s at one point. Oh, whoa, whoa. And then everything was chipping away. I wonder if somebody will get into the 110s, and that's what George managed to find on that last lap. 110.899 to take pole position.
And since we were on the start-finish straight, as cars were coming around on a hot lap, especially ones that had good times, if they had greens or purples, they would show them. And we could see them coming down the straight from the hairpin to the pit lane entrance and then the chicane. And we would know, we could then look left, see them hit the chicane, go through the chicane and then hit the straight. And we would watch them go by. And you're watching the car in front of you, but also the timing board on the TV, which is right in front of us. And I developed a little game, because I wanted to figure out when exactly that time would post. And I would point at the TV as people would go by. And like my second time, it was Charles. And he was coming by on a good lap. I think it was probably Q2. And as he's coming by, I go, "Charles!" And I point at the screen, and it's exactly the moment he goes up to like third or second. I'm like, yes. And I tried it like...
You finger gunned it.
I did.
Like properly
Boom.
boom.
And then I tried 4 more times. I was off
Never
by
got
2
close.
seconds each time. It was ridiculous. So I stopped doing that because it was embarrassing. But these are the things. Top tip: find things that make you happy when you're there. And it's like the greatest. It's like when Andy takes his kids to Legoland and misses Fantasy. No, wait, it's the opposite of that. It's when you get an opportunity to just do something you love with other people who love the same thing. If you get a chance to go to any race, take it. It's worth it.
Yeah. And what I'd never realized, and it hadn't hit us last time because we were much higher up, but now that we were down by the fence, we noticed, and they called it out on the track TV, that they all take a different line in qualifying.
Yes.
Because they don't need to set themselves up for turn one. So they take the shortest path from the chicane to the finish line. And what that means is they come at breakneck speed on the far right-hand side of the track, almost touching kind of the wall, because that's the shortest path to the finish line, which is also the closest location to us. And you could feel it. You could feel it. When somebody came out on a warm-up lap and they maybe took a line that was through the middle because they were setting themselves up for turn one, you knew it felt fast. But then when they were on the end of their hot lap and they were giving it full beans and like 20 feet in front of us, it just amazing. Just watching when George went past, you knew it was a fast lap. And we said to each other, we have no way of being able to, from our eyeballs, know that it was a tenth quicker than anybody else. You can't perceive a tenth over an entire lap. But he went past, and we just went, wow. And then we looked up at the scoreboard. You finger gunned at the wrong time. And then George went top of the shop, and it was like,
well, when
wow,
he did
knew that was a fast lap.
There were 2 times, maybe a few more, but really there were 2 times when the entire crowd, all of the grandstands, and those in the paddock club paying attention, when all of these things happened, there were 2 times when the crowd literally in unison went crazy. This was the first of them. It was when George put in that 110, 8-9 or whatever it was, and took the pole position right at the end, because this was an epic quali. People were texting me, best quali of the year question. I think it was, not just because I was there, but because of the way it just kept tumbling, the times. Yeah. And it was also fun because we once again have this little craziness with the C6. Is the C6 tire good? Does it make it a whole lap? A lot of people went to the mediums, which is the old soft, which is a C5. And we saw people on yellows, especially weirdly Mercedes-powered cars. But we saw a lot of people on the yellow stripe tires, the mediums. We saw people on hards, softs, no hards. But we saw a lot of different strategies unfolding, and we're trying to figure that out on the board with the cars going by. And then when Max took pole, everyone's like, woo! And then all of a sudden, George is coming around on a hot lap well after the flag's gone, at least, 50 seconds or something. He must have just crossed it. And he goes through, and the whole place just goes, whoa! It was amazing.
It was absolutely amazing. So that set us up then for a feisty, bringing back together the two guys that had come together in Spain. So we had George and Max on the front row, Kimi Antonelli tucked in right behind. Oscar semi-redeemed himself for poor practice because he did better than Lando. We had Charles in 5th, Lewis in 6th, Fernando in 7th. No, what am I doing? I'm reading the race. That's stupid.
Fernando was
George,
6th,
Max,
Lando in 7th.
George, Max, Oscar, Kimi, Lewis, Fernando, Lando, Charles, Isaac, and Albon. And that was our grid order. And we were like, okay, so who's going to be sat in front of us? Okay, 12th. That looks like it's going to be Cola-Pint-o. The Argentina guys would be happy. But then word of penalties started coming around. So we knew Yuki had got 10 for overtaking Piastri under red flag. I don't know if I read this right. So apparently he overtook Piastri under the red flag because Piastri was limping back to the pit lane, trying to go as slow as possible so he didn't delaminate his tyre and kind of probably destroy the entire side of the car. And Yuki came around behind him and went past him. I didn't see that was a problem if it was done safely, because I would have thought you can't expect everyone to back up behind a limping car, so I thought it would be okay. I think I read this right, though, that Yuki basically almost didn't lift. It was like he was still going like 176 kilometers an hour and Piastri was going about 12 kilometers an hour. So I don't know I don't know the rule book well enough to know if that plays into it or not. Like, is it how much he lifted? Did he lift? Or is it just a penalty either way? If it's a penalty either way, it seems a bit nuts because that would mean anybody that gets caught behind Piastri, you've got to make this big Piastri train while you all limp along together because he's going so slow. But anyway, we're kind of shaking it all out and we were like, tap the guy in front of us who was wearing the V-carb merch. We went, we've got Isaac in front of us tomorrow. He's going to be 12. And he was so happy. This guy, like, everyone's wearing Red Bull, McLaren, Ferrari. Those were the three dominating. There was some Haas stuff as well. But he was like almost the only person I saw in V-carb stuff in the section that we were sat in. And he was just so thrilled that we'd got Isaac right in front of us on Sunday.
Yep, and there were, I got to say, there's an awful lot of Isaac fans out there who just love watching this guy. I didn't hear one person have anything bad to say about him, and everyone was kind of excited to see what he'd do. Pro tip, not much. But so, as we did this, we had a great time. And then we watched, they interviewed them on the racetrack by the start-finish line, so we could see them being interviewed after quali. And when George mentioned that, what are you going to do about Max on the inside? And George says, well, Max has got a lot of penalty points. I have a lot more room on my license. And the whole crowd went nuts. Like that, George won people over the entire weekend with fast laps left and right, a great quali, and then that comment. And I think everybody was like, "Sign me up for George F. Russell."
Yeah, it's bizarre. He gets so much online hatred, like people calling him Princess George, and
really, I've never seen this.
It's awful. It's awful the amount of. People don't like him, but I didn't feel that in the crowd. So I'm a firm believer that there are keyboard warriors, and then there are people that go to tracks and appreciate what drivers do. So that was awesome. And we'd had our fill at this point. We were probably still semi hungover from the night before. We'd seen everything, soaked everything up. We were like, right, are we staying around for the Porsche race, or should we just sort of watch it as we walk? And we watched it as we walked. So we saw the Porsche race, but not sat from our seats. We headed back, chewed over the day's events. We didn't go large on Saturday night because we're older guys now. We couldn't do, we knew Sunday night we'd probably be going downtown Montreal. So we took it easy, went for a burger, full of beers, and that was a bow around Saturday.
It was awesome. So then Sunday comes, and one other tip is you're allowed to bring food into the grounds as well as water and water bottles. We learned this last time. We've said this before. But don't go spend $11 on a slice of pizza, which may or may not be in stock. What you should be doing is instead bringing stuff with you. And if you have a friend like I do, who's a handy guy, who's thoughtful and wakes up early in the morning, named Rob Q. Vale, he goes out to the supermarché around the corner, buys some ham or turkey, some rolls, some cheese, and then he sits there and makes sandwiches quickly in the morning before we leave. By saying make sandwiches, he rips the bread apart, throws some stuff on them, and we call it a day. And it's great. And so We both had our fill of homemade sandwiches, which saved us approximately $407 on Saturday. But we did not have any homemade beers because you can't get those in. And so what we ended up doing was, we had to buy the beer at the track, but we had our own food and we had our own water, and they had more water filling stations this year, but not many more.
Not
but
enough,
apparently in order to have more water filling stations, they took away all the hand washing stations and all the Purell. So people were complaining about that the whole weekend. You would walk out of a porta potty and there was nothing. You're like on your own. Did you bring your own soap and water? No? Tough.
So actually, before we got into Sunday, just to sort of also say that this time we didn't try and walk the track, not literally the track, but we didn't try and walk the circumference of it around all the grandstands like we tried to do last time. But we did a little bit of it. I can't remember if it was Friday or Saturday. It was probably Saturday. We tried to just sort of absorb everything we could. So we went to the fan zone, where we saw kind of the show cars, the World Drivers title trophy, a million Lego stands, simulators, merch tents, monster stage. And it was night and day from when we did it last time. Last time we did it, my picture of the World Drivers title trophy you can hardly see because of all of the rain that's on the glass case on the outside. And in order to get close to it, you had to do parkour over all the muddy puddles to be able to get near anything. This time, it was like walking through a desert because everything was so dusty, which I'm fine with. It was hot, it was scorching. We couldn't have asked for better weather. So I think we probably took in more of the circuit this time. Despite the fact that we walked less of it, I think we took our time and enjoyed it and soaked it all up this time because we weren't trying to jump. Most of the time I spent looking down to try to see where my foot was going to go last time. I was just puddle jumping. It was crazy.
Totally. That was a lot of fun.
And I met a guy with a Ferrari on his head and had my picture taken with him. He's
And Rob tried to rope me into the picture, and I'm like, nah, that's all right. That seems like a veil situation.
I don't, when in Rome, there's a dude with a Ferrari on his head.
When in Montreal and there's a guy with a Ferrari on his head, don't take the picture with him because you'll end up on the internet. Okay, and so then we go on Sunday, and we got there right as the Porsche Cup was finishing. We got some of that, but we really wanted to be there for the Academy for their last race. It did not disappoint. I have some great panoramics of the grid. It was a great race, but it ended under safety car, so we kind of took the chance to dodge out and get a little shade. We were going to meet up with some folks, and what'd you say?
And a beer.
Oh, yeah, of course. And we were going to meet up with some folks at this point, but then we realized the driver parade was getting close.
Whoa. Yeah, but put a pin in the driver parade.
Yeah.
One thing that the Academy made us realize, because, and this sounds so privileged and entitled, so I'm going to try and say it in a way that it doesn't, but we missed a lot of the grid action before the race we went to last time because we were hanging out in the pit lane with Paul. So while that was absolutely the most epic experience ever, we realized we had a whole part of the Grand Prix that we hadn't witnessed last time, the driver's parade and the grid walk. And maybe, okay, fine, grid walk's a grid walk, it won't be that great. But when the Academy did it, and we had the Academy all laid out in front of us, and right there was Susie and Toto, and they waved to us. There was the whole section started chanting Toto and Susie, and they looked up and waved. I was like, this is just I don't want to be disrespectful, say just the Academy level, but there's obviously less people milling around the grid. There's less kind of people around in terms of just that whole activity. But it was still amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, if that's what this is like, what are we about to see in half an hour when we watch the grid assembling in front of us and they start pushing the cars into position? Again, all these things we didn't see last time because we were just having our minds blown. But it was just another side of it that we were going to get to see. So yeah, but the Academy race was great. Again, like Brian said, lots of contact, finished under safety car, and that's a little bit of a foreshadow for Sunday.
Yeah, for the rest of Sunday, yeah. So then we get back in our seats for the driver parade, and Rob and I since we missed it, we were debating how and when. We knew when it was starting, we didn't know where, and we didn't know how long, and so we were like, all right, we've never really paid attention to this on TV. So we get out there, and they're loading up the drivers to the south of us. And then we see them bring on the other flatbeds, and I go, oh, God, it's the Paddock Club people getting their trip around. And I looked at Rob and the people in front of us who had a great sense of humor, and I said, I haven't booed a single driver all weekend, and I wouldn't do that. But I'm going to boo these people for some reason. Just jealousy. I wish I had the money to do what you're doing.
You're unadulterated
you're fine
jealousy.
People. Yeah, you're fine people, but you got too much money. And so we're going to have to boo you out of principle. And so the people around us thought this was hilarious, and it was contagious, and it's common, right? We've seen it in other races. It's not like Rob and I invented this, like the finger gun for qualy, which didn't work. But so what we did was we started some boo, and the people on the buses, the Paddock Club people on the flatbeds, most of them loved it. They thought it was hilarious because they figured it out after, oh, yeah, all right. And some of them were waving at us, taking videos of us booing them. That was the only booing I did the entire weekend. And it wasn't against the people. It was just, I mean, if I had the money, I'd be up there. And I'd be waving back.
Yeah, 100%. So then we watched those guys go past, and then we waited and waited and waited. And then finally the truck came by with all the drivers on. It was quite funny because they knew they were getting to the end. So I think some of the enthusiasm for waving to the crowd had waned slightly by the time they came past us, because I looked at my video that I took. They were all chatting to each other. I think like maybe Kimmy or someone turned around and was waving to the crowd, but most of them they zoned out at this point. They're all getting ready. Right, race is about to start. I'm getting off the truck in a minute. Like, so it was great and it was amazing. They were like right there in front of us, but it's a long old lap for them to be enthusiastically waving the entire time round. So I get it. Then we started to see grid activity, and once all that had cleared off,
it took a little time. We took a little break, but then we
took a little break. But we came back, and there was just grid activity that I'd never even thought of, never even once in my life thought of, was the guy walking around checking all the sensors in all of the grid boxes to make sure that the false start thing was in place. So the little guy behind him with a bag of spares and a set of pliers, and every time the little detector thing said that sensor wasn't right, he basically. Well, he didn't click his fingers, but he essentially turned around to the other guy. Yep, this one's a dud. Danny would go, pliers out, take the old thing out, put the new one in. I was fascinated. I didn't even know that was a thing. I don't know why, but it was just by being that close and seeing it, it was like, it's pretty cool.
It was very
slowly,
cool.
slowly but surely, stuff started appearing. We had a realization, which is going to sound stupid. I always assumed that the cars drove round and took their positions on the grid, and then the grid formed around them. So all the tyres and the jacks came out and formed around the cars. And it was completely the opposite. All of the grid boxes get assembled first, and then they push each car on little trolleys into position. I'd never seen that. I guess I never tuned in early enough on TV to watch it, but...
I've seen some of the cars get pushed up. I just never really thought about it. So, like, again, same as you, I figured they'd just drive up. Maybe a couple team members tell them where to stop. No, it's the reverse. The grid box fully set up with tires and coolers and everything, and then all of a sudden they push the cars in. We saw all the team principals walk by. We got a chance to see Martin Brundle both preparing for and then doing his grid walk. Gunter walked by. Gunter was a big favorite. Everyone's yelling, Gunter, and he did nothing until finally someone shrieked so loudly. He turned around and waved. But it was really just
that
great.
Was fascinating. Watching all the people watching as the grid, as that kind of sense of anticipation, the activity started ratcheting up on the grid. So you've got drivers coming over. We've got Isaac right in front of us doing shadow boxing and gymnastics before he gets in the car. And on the opposite side of the grid, Hulk couldn't look more chilled. It was like total opposites of two drivers preparing. But you got Laura Winter, you had Lawrence, you just had it just all of a sudden was just this hive of activity, and like people are just everyone's like got each other's back. They're like, oh, there's so and so, oh, there's so and so, and everyone's like pointed. You're like, where?
There's Nico Rosberg. You're like, hey, it was really cool. Like Rob said, Isaac was right in front of us, and I just have to reemphasize. So many of us are Isaac fans, and we were trying to get his attention. We knew he was busy trying to get locked in. He literally was jumping around, shaking his arms, not quite fully shadow boxing, but it was pretty close. I mean, he was extending them, getting his whole motion going.
You didn't see him put a couple of body blows onto the guy that was holding the umbrella?
Yeah, but that was it, like one or two. But then Hulk, on the other hand, is literally leaning against the wall in position 11, just like sipping his water. Esty Bestie walked by, no brawly boy for him. He had no umbrella. Everyone else had an umbrella. It was just cool to watch, and watch all the drivers get to their cars, and it was amazing. And so, we kind of get through this period where they're getting everyone set. They get the drivers in the cars. I have a great video of Isaac hopping in. He did at one point wave to us, to the crowd, before he got into the car, when he acknowledged everybody, waved, and we may have all lost our minds. And then, everyone gets in their cars and they start shipping all the stuff away from the grid, getting a lot of the trolleys away. Interestingly, every team has a different tire preparation approach, where I think it was Haas where they took the outer cover of the tire off and held them up in the air, and then one person ran around as fast as they could and collected all 4 outer covers, and then everyone who was manning or womaning the wheel in front of them just took it off at the same time, whereas most every other team just took it off completely at the same time and didn't take the outer cover. I don't know where Haas decided this is a faster, better approach, but it was fascinating because all of a sudden one team had these big tire covers up in the air holding them up. I'm like, well, that's different. Do you have a question, class? And so
I love the fact that you even noticed that. Because
Oh.
you said, you pointed it out. I was like, I would never even paid any attention to how people were taking tire covers off.
And you-
But
we both
we know
know.
you love tires.
I do. We both know that somewhere at the Haas, factory at the think tank, they're like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take the outer cover off first. But then how do you take the full blanket off if you have the outer cover off first? Aha. You hold it up high in the air and someone comes, collects them. And then you can two-hand the cover, the rest of the cover. Well, why do you do that? And there's a reason. Is it working? No. But there's a reason that they're doing that.
Yep. And then you just get that amazing moment where everything's cleared out and you're waiting for the formation lap. Engines start kind of ramping up in noise, then off they go, do the formation lap, come back. It did look like George got fully excited on the formation lap and was about 3,000 miles ahead of everybody else. I thought he's going to be sitting for a long time.
He was at the hairpin. There were still people coming out of turn 3.
And then they all line up, and that's just that moment where I was saying to Sap, right, I'm going to film the start, but unlike last time, I'm going to film the start and just point my camera at the grid because we were so close I couldn't miss it. But I'm going to look at the lights and I'm going to take this in because I realized last time I watched the start through my phone, which I hate it when I see people doing that, like living live events through a screen. I'm like, you're there, watch it, drink it in. So I filmed with the left hand and I looked down to my right, watched the 5 lights light up, go out. I did a pretty good job, actually. My video is pretty stable. I thought when I looked at it, I'd have been so excited I was waving my left hand around and it would just be filming the sky or something. But good start. We didn't get George and Max shenanigans into the first corner like we thought we might.
We got
But
Kimmy
what
and
we
Oscar
did-
shenanigans.
I was going to say, what we did get was Kimmy having an absolute stellar start and throwing it up the inside of Oscar. And we were all like, oh, is he going to stick? And we're watching it on the TV, big screen. It's like, is he going to hold this? He's going to. Yes, he has. Yes, he's done it. And what a move by Kimmy. That was absolutely great.
And then the part that kind of got some oohs and ahs, not as big as the George Pole or what's about to happen with the papaya situation at the end. We had Alex go off-roading. He got pushed off. I can't remember exactly who was it that pushed him off, but he gets pushed off and he goes through the corner. And the Williams was bouncing like a Bronco, just forward, backward, forward. I'm like, how is that car still in one piece? And then he rejoins.
How he didn't collect it? Yeah,
Fairly unsafely, if we're all being real honest about it. I know it's lap 1, but dang boy, you just went straight back onto the track with no control. And once again, and I don't have the proof, but I'm fairly certain Hulkenberg got like 2 positions because he just yanked left and avoided Albon. And Albon almost took someone out on the outside. So Hulkenberg got both of them. And I'm fairly certain that was the same corner. Something similar. Someone in front of Hulk had spun. And I can't remember. Was it Magnussen? I can't remember now. But I think it was Canada. And Hulk did the same thing on the outside of one of these corners where he just kind of last second instinct. Just as fast as a blink of an eye. And he misses by a millimeter and gains 2 spots. So I'm fairly certain that was Hulk from his prior days, not at Sauber. But regardless, that was the big drama on turn 1 was, as you said, Kimmy and Oscar, and then all of a sudden Albon's cutting the grass. People are taking avoiding action. And it was cool because when they came back around, everybody was so close to each other. And I videoed the start. Also, like you, not watching my camera, I watched the real live action. I videoed the end of the first lap because everybody is just... They're right next to each other, and it's so close, and it's just one big sound. It's just nonstop. And I'm like, that's so cool. And I knew we'd start to see Delta after that, so I wanted that just one all-together, full chat, whole grid go by.
Yeah, and one of the big conversations was, because I think it was Lando and Charles had started on the hard, and everyone else had started on the medium ahead of them, I think, from memory. They split the strategy there to try and give Lando and Charles something to run long, see how they could do it. And we started chatting like, I wonder if this is going to be a one-stopper. There'd been some chatter that maybe the tyres could last. And I can't remember. Didn't write it down. I want to say it was only like 13 or 14, maybe.
I think it was
that Max
14,
came
15.
in.
Yep.
Okay, that Max came in, and it happened a couple of times. Kimmy suddenly found a burst of pace and was hunting Max down, getting very, very close to the back of him. And we thought, oh, he's going to get him, he's going to get him, he's going to get him. And there's one point where Kimmy was right up his trumpet coming up the straight towards the chicane, was about to throw the move on. And for a split second, we all thought Max had lost it and gone straight over the chicane because he'd been bullied out of the corner by young Kimmy, until we all realised, oh no, he's boxing. No, he hasn't missed this corner at all. There was this kind of like draw of breath from the crowd. Oh,
Because we don't have we have some team radio on track TV, but not all of it. So we don't know when Max is being told to box. We occasionally will know about it ahead of time, but it was the minority of times people hit the pits that we knew ahead of time. So when, like you say, when Max took to the pit lane in Canada, it's just a straight on through. So we're like, he missed it. No, he's going to the boxes.
So then he came out on hards as expected. We're like, there's no way. This is like 15 out of 70. There's no way they take these to the end. This is going to be a two-stopper, which is always good because we don't like the side effect of a one-stopper tends to be this big, long phase of tyre management where nobody does anything. And I'm not going to say this was the best race in the world because I honestly don't know. It was brilliant being there. The 70 laps went by way quicker than I was expecting. And I felt fully entertained the entire time. So it might be different for those that watched on TV. I also don't remember the order of any of the pit stops really that happened.
Nope.
But we ended up with, I think it was Charles and Lando were out there. Charles stopped a little bit earlier, and I think it was Lando left out to try and see how long those hards were going to last. Maybe I've messed up that order. It was
I think they said to Lando, "We need a hell of a drive from you today."
Yeah, and I thought, is that code for you're going to try the one stopper? So let's just see how far these hards can go before they start falling apart. It wasn't. They kind of came in. I don't even remember, but maybe 10 laps after the medium runners, something like that. They didn't go a whole heap into the race because I remember at the time they did pit, I kind of looked at you and said, well, if that's as long as they can get out of the hards, the other guys that have already come in for the hards, there's no way. This is a two-stopper, absolute two-stopper, 100%.
Yeah, and so we had a DNF from Alex with his Williams. We had the Lawson just appeared in the pits all of a sudden and retired, if I remember that right.
Yeah, we have no idea what happened there. He was just there.
No, not on Lawson. We didn't. And but again, it was 70 laps, went so fast. I look up, we're at 20. I look up again, we're at 30. And I'm like, man, this is going too fast. Because I'm trying to take it all in. And who's where, like you say, two-stopper. Where does that put people in the order? Who stopped? We're kind of manually counting. Oh, then when Charles and Lando boxed, we're like, okay, so that's one. What are they going to? Oh, they're going to a hard again. Someone's doing a guaranteed two-stopper here. Oh, no, medium. Maybe can you make it to the end from here? No. So it was so much fun having these conversations. And the guy to my right, a big Yuki fan, had sector times out on his phone and was relaying info. The couple next to you, on the left of us, they were just having so much fun, and we were all questioning each other about, is this going to be a two-stopper? Are they out on hards? And the car's going so fast. On TV, you can see the color of the sidewall. In real life, you can't even see the number of the car. You have to figure out the yellow T-cam. And by the way, that was my favorite part, was we were low enough where into the pit lane, when cars were going by in the pit lane, we could hear them. We could hear the whistles of the marshals announcing the car moving. But all you could see was the T-cam going by, like sharks in the water. Like, you just see the fin. You're like, oh, there's a car going by. And then occasionally someone would be a little bit further out. I'm like, oh, that's a V-carb, because it's the same Red Bull colors, but it's not a Red Bull. Which, by the way...
Now that you've said that,
yes.
Which, by the way, we keep saying that we thought that the livery of the V-carb looked amazing. We've been a fan of the simplicity of the white car with the Red Bull design on it. But man, oh man, in person, it's even gone up in my estimations. It's just a beautiful looking car, that
Agreed. And can I say one more thing backwards about V-carb? As people lined up on the grid, it seemed like the team principals hung out with the leading car more than not. So you got two cars, like Isaac and 12, and Liam was back behind him, and we had Laurent Mekies the whole time with us. Flavio was at Cola-Pint-o's car the whole time, most of the time. And that seemed to be the case for most of the team principals. Not all, but most. And I'm mentioning this because we watched Christian Horner run to the back of the grid with like 30 seconds left. He's like, oh, I got to go say hi to Yuki for a minute. He'd been 25 minutes with Max. And he's like, oh, I forgot about my other son, Yuki, in the back, and I'll go give him a Christmas present too. But, the reason I'm mentioning this, we've not really got into the conspiracy theory of Red Bull and V-Carb and the two teams. Yes, last year with Ricardo and the fastest lap and his last time and blah, 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 and costing. Okay, not much. Helmut Marko walked back from Max's car, made a beeline to Isaac's car, and said something to Isaac, and then kept going backwards to talk to more of the teams. That's 4 cars he visited. You're telling me these aren't the same team? He went to 4, at least 2 different cars. I saw him personally at the Red Bull and the V-Carb. What? I don't know. It felt a little weird to me that he would go to the sister team, that he doesn't do anything.
Sister team.
But he sits in the Red Bull garage, as you would say.
But
okay,
looks after all the drivers, essentially. Yeah, moving on. Then we kind of got to 15-ish laps to go, and while one thing was disappointing was the spread of the field, that we had so many cars that had been lapped by this point, which we haven't seen for a long time. But what was happening was that with the tyre offset, how Oscar had gone further, we suddenly had some quick McLarens that were chasing down Kimi, who was chasing down a Max, who probably wasn't really chasing down a George.
A George who, by the way, drove a great weekend.
Oh, just brilliant. He was keeping Max at bay. Every time Max looked like he might get towards DRS, once it got to about 1.4, seemed to be George's wake-up call to take it back out to 2 again.
Yep.
And just kept him at arm's reach. So it was like, well, are we going to get the Kimi ahead of both of Max's pit stops? Kimi had been right on Max's trumpet and looking like he was going to put an overtake in. So he seemed to have this pace advantage. So, is that going to happen? Are we going to get kind of the McLarens coming through? And it just started to kind of build to this point where we're like, Lando's looking really quick. Oscar can't get past Kimi. He was in DRS for lap after lap after lap. He kept bringing it down. Every time he came out of the hairpin, anything under 0.7 seconds, we worked out that kind of meant that by the chicane, he was going to potentially be able to make a move. But he never really seemed to fuck the hairpin up and come out, say, 0.5 behind maybe, which is probably what he needed. So while he was battling him, Lando was just kind of just reeling him in. And Lando looked quicker, much quicker. I was like, Lando could get both of these and then potentially have enough laps to go hunt down Max. And then it happened. We had those 2 laps of Lando being all over Oscar.
All over him.
All over him. And it was just brilliant. It's just brilliant to see that they're allowed to race. It's quite funny. I was watching some of the fallout of what we're about to discuss online, which was, they said, it's papaya rules. It's like, yeah, okay, but papaya rules isn't code for swap cars for the fastest. Papaya rules is you're allowed to race but be clean. That's what papaya rules means. You're free to race but don't take each other out. So all these people saying, oh, they should have enforced papaya rules and let Lando pass because he was the fastest car. You literally don't know what papaya rules are if you say that. So they raced. They did keep it clean for the majority of the time. And then we watched them go past the start-finish straight where you could have slung a rubber band between Oscar's car and Lando's car. And that followed all the way through the last lap. Was not the last lap, the last racing lap, as it was going to turn out to be.
Right, 66,
where he was
I think.
Right behind him all the way, put a move in on the hairpin.
Traded positions.
Oh, they came out of that hairpin neck and neck, didn't they? They just both got amazing drive off that hairpin. Oh.
And then they come, as Rob's saying, they come down from the hairpin. Lando's on the outside and is ahead, but he's on the outside and on the wrong side for taking the chicane at that speed. He actually brakes much earlier than Oscar. Oscar still makes the corner. Oscar's ahead. At this point, the crowd, we are in a frenzy. I don't know how else to describe it. We're all standing. We're freaking out. And we're watching it on the monitors. They're coming down from the hairpin to the chicane. Now we all look left. And we see them coming our way, and it is, Lando is touching almost Oscar's car. He's catching up to him so fast. And we're watching it, and now they're right in front of us. Now we look to the right a little bit, and all of a sudden Lando drives into the back of Oscar, and we see just a collision. We see a car, obviously Lando, go flying into the wall. Fire comes out, sparks come out, things go flying. And Rob and I witnessed our first racing contact, a crash, right in front of us. Well, to the right of us, but we could see it with our naked eyes. And we're like, oh my God, did that just happen? And that was the biggest
Yeah,
of the
like
weekend. The whole crowd
the
at the
whole
same
grandstand.
time. Yes.
I've never heard a bigger intake of breath of so many people all at the same time because it was right in front of us. We saw the collision into the wall. We saw the big scuff mark that it left afterwards. More to come on that in a minute. And it was just phenomenal. It's sad for Lando, but to witness that and to be there and be so close, we could have almost caught some carbon fiber pieces. That was pretty cool to watch that actually. And then that unfortunately meant we got a safety car finish. But you know what? Looking back over what we'd witnessed for the entire weekend, it had just been brilliant, and it didn't actually dampen it for
Nope,
me.
not
It
at
would have
all.
been nice if Lando had put the move on Oscar and made it stick and had 4 laps to chase down Kimi. Would that have been epic? Yeah, it could well have been, but I wouldn't change what happened. It was absolutely brilliant. We were right there. I felt closer to the podium than we were last time. I don't know if we were or not. I just felt like we could see it better, and we could see George climb out of the car and do the celebration off the top of the car. And then we saw obviously all the podium celebration. And I think what you were teeing up earlier, maybe when you said about the single biggest cheer that kind of came out in unison from the crowd, was when Kimi Antonelli, I think, held up
Yes.
his third place trophy.
It was amazing. That cheer, the crowd started chanting Kimmy, 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 Kimmy. It was just amazing. It was fun to watch. The huge cheer. I was actually a little surprised. I was a little surprised that the entire crowd was that big a fan of seeing this happen. But the third youngest driver to ever get a podium, which is a tremendous statistic. We watched him not drink any of the champagne, just poured over his head. Good for him. And so then, we had a wonderful time watching this happen. We actually moved down for the podium celebration itself as the drivers got done out of their cars. In the cool-down room, we kind of just walked down closer to the podium so we could see it even better. And we watched the podium, and it was tremendous. It was just wonderful. We had George, obviously, on the top step, Max, and then Kimi. And the crowd loved seeing Kimi up there. George, too. And there were a lot of Max fans who really kind of cheered a lot for Max, too, which was great. And it was a lot of fun. And we weren't done, though. This wasn't the end of the day, of the race, of the time at the track. The race itself, I actually was done. But at this point, they opened the podium gates, the celebration gates. And here's your SAP stat this week. There were 11 gates that they used so people could get out onto the track for the podium celebration. We'll come back to the podium people in a second, people wanting to see the podium. But Rob and I watched the whole podium, finished up the celebration, and we said, let's go onto the track. And so we quickly made a beeline for what we thought was one of the track entrances. No, it was crazy. It was nearly impossible. We went down. We were by this Amex tent next, and we got out there. It took us a while. We had to push through. There were people coming back from the podium celebration. We got out. We were close to turn 1, and we just basked in the glory of turn 1, being on the track. We walked around in the grass. I took pictures of the P0. I may have laid on the curbing on the inside of turn 1, taking a picture. That's on the Discord. If you want to check it out, you got to join the Discord. And so Rob and I took pictures there. We FaceTimed family and friends. It was just like the greatest thing in the world. All these people so jazzed to be out there, standing on an F1 track, having the time of our lives.
And then we came up with the genius idea to go and find the first contact where Lando had hit the wall. So we walked our way up there, pushed our way up, and we found a whole bunch of people were standing in front of it, and nobody was giving it any attention whatsoever. And everyone was clamoring and looking over the fence. And I just asked a couple of people, said, what's everybody waiting for? Do they think a driver's coming back out? And these poor folk, they look, oh my gosh, I felt like I was just ruining their whole day when they said, we're waiting for the podium. And I was like, that was 25 minutes ago. And this guy did not, they must have been waiting at one of those gates for so long that they just didn't even hear the noise of the podium. They finally got there, thought all their luck is in at once because they're right there in front of the podium. And that's why they weren't giving up their space to let us take a picture of the wall, because they were defending their territory. I had to show the guy a video on my phone of the podium celebration, the champagne, and his face, he was mortified. It was like, I missed the podium. I was like, yeah, kinda. Well, fully, completely, totally missed it.
Yeah.
So those people started moving, and then a couple of them were just staying around. I don't know really what for. They said, okay, Can you guys back up? Because we just want to take a picture of the two of us pointing to that spot there. That big, huge scuff mark is where Lando made a collision with the wall. So nice girl took the camera, took a picture of the two of us, and then suddenly everybody realized what was going on. And now there was this kind of, we should have started selling tickets to the impact zone, because suddenly everybody wanted a picture in front of, oh, is that where Lando hit the wall? Yes. And then Brian's doing his little cameraman routine. Oh, come on, give me a camera, I'll take a picture. This whole production of getting suddenly everybody realized what they'd been stood in front of for about 20 minutes.
It was funny. We were trying to find it, and there's a lot, as you saw the race, a lot of times where he hits the wall. So there were a lot of false positives, a lot of marks on the wall that weren't the mark. However, I took a picture of it on my camera right after it happened. I should have recorded Lando going by with Oscar because I would have had the crash. But regardless, you can watch it on TV. I had the spot, and we located it between two Pirelli logos. And so we're like, all right, it's between the Pirellis. And we just kept hunting and hunting and hunting. And like, I think we went too far. Rob's like, no, we didn't go far enough. We hunted and hunted, and we found it. And like Rob said, it turned into a celebrity photo opportunity of people pointing at the wall. Had a wonderful time, and then we went to leave back through the door with which we came, and we missed it by 15 feet as the human police line pushed us the other direction. Unfortunately, all of the people in the middle of the podium area, the start-finish straight, did not know they needed to head north. And so we were all corralled into this spot, I don't know how many thousands of people, unable to move. And after about 10 minutes, people started chanting, "Go that way," to the people in front of us who didn't know they needed to move. Took us forever. We finally got out. Did we see people climbing up the fence and getting arrested? Yes. Sadly, we saw people who needed first aid, and it was hard to get to them because, again, it was a corral of people. So while they greatly improved the weekend over 24, apparently, we thought 23 was fine. They got to figure out a way. If they're going to allow this podium celebration to happen, there has to be a better way to clean up the track afterwards of people getting them off the track. Because what they did was just ran us into a choke point of thousands.
Yep, totally agree. Right, we could go on and on for hours about our weekend because it was so great. So should we do the normal wrap up now? Do we want to hear? Are we going to do a King of the Pits or the Pits? Because I feel like it was.
We don't know
the whole
enough.
weekend was so amazing. We don't know enough, and I'm just going to say King of the Pits was just Canada 2025,
Agreed.
and the Pits was missing the entry, missing the human police line by 15 seconds so that we could have got out earlier. But that's it. I'm saying we give it a pass this week, but we don't give a pass to the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Pitlane Paul.
And we have not heard these, so there's two of them. We'll all hear them together.
Well, I guess we've done the Hey Nows, so probably don't need to do that one again. But anyway, that was the Canadian Grand Prix. Let's start Friday. I mean, the only thing that really happened Friday. Did anything else really happen? I'm not sure. I met the guys for a beer. That was quite nice. Lovely to see them again. And then, yeah, I tried to remember actually the weekends. I know. I mean, obviously, one of the talking points I want to cover is Oscar and more than Oscar, Yuki getting a penalty for driving past Oscar's heavily damaged car under red flags and then overtaking him and. Look, rules are rules, and it's a penalty. Is it a fair penalty? Man, no, surely not. I mean, look, it's black and white as a rule, so you have to accept it. But surely if a car's damaged, and you're driving behind a car that's probably putting stuff all over the track, I mean, okay, it wasn't, but, you know, I would say I don't know. Maybe it's a thing like, can you ask to be overtaken? You know, can you ask to overtake him? Because I mean, if Oscar's crawling round because he wants to get a car back with a flat tire, and also the rules state that if there's bits falling off the car, you've got to stop. Whereas if he gets it back to the pits, he can just repair the damage and continue potentially. So, and then obviously, from Yuki's side, he's probably behind, and you know. Wants to get the car back also, the tyres are losing temperature, everything's losing temperature. I don't know. I thought it was harsh, but penalties are penalties, and that is in the rule book, so, you know. Qualifying, was it really special? I think it was pretty straightforward, I think. I don't think there's any major standout. Obviously, George's lap was spectacular at the end, it was really good. I mean, Mercedes were quite quick all weekend, really, you know. good race pace, which naturally we'll come on to with the next section, which is the race I've just watched. And you two guys were there, so you probably don't get the you understand that you don't get the full experience. Well, I mean, you get a bloody good experience, but you don't get the full experience. There's Ferrari drivers whinging about strategy. I mean, you got to look where they finished and say probably they had a point, but I also think that's the pace of the car. Alex Albon was getting a bit chopsy on the radio. It was it was an okay race. It wasn't groundbreaking. And then sort of like once the tyre strategy had sort of leveled itself out towards the last 20 laps, we were faced with quite the finale, which actually bizarrely didn't really materialise into anything, sadly. Which is, I mean, sadly. Obviously, I'm going to come on to the Lando, Norris, and Piastri crash shortly, which sort of killed the end of the race slightly. But up until that point, you had George, who was being caught by Max. But I think George really had it under control. He was just protecting the car, protecting the tyres. Max, I think, was just happy. He sort of realised that's the maximum we could get out of the car. Kimmy probably was, excuse the language, shaking like a shitting dog behind. P3 is one hell of an achievement for that kid. 18 years old is pretty special. And then obviously you got these two McLarens that they almost right. So I mean, I'm gonna go two ways on this. The first way, and I'm not going to defend anyone or anything or say anyone or anything was right, but when you have teams who swap drivers because they're faster, that is sort of what they tried to avoid. Now, I applaud McLaren for not actually doing that, by the way. I think that's fantastic. Because I think you don't want to... Well, you just don't want to have what happened. But then what happened was kind of Lando-ish. I'm going to probably just invoke that word now. Whereas Lando... in credit to him, and I'm going to say credit to him, he comes straight in, on the radio, put his hands up straight away and said, look, that was stupid. I'm sorry to everyone. But actually, they're the sort of things that will cost you a championship. Now, I know I say, like, under pressure, he's blah, 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 but it sort of gives you another angle of, like dude, what was that? And it was like, is it desperation to get past? It was a strange one. I'm waiting to see what's really said after the race, obviously, but that's just finished, so I can't. But it was a good race. I think I sort of quite enjoyed it. I was in New York, sat in the pub watching it, which was a bit weird, but it was good fun. And yeah, like I said, ignoring the crash at the end, it was sort of shaping up to be a brilliant finish. And it sort of killed it. It didn't really have the finish we wanted it to have. So, hey, there we go. That's another race ticked off. I thought it was very good. I'm trying to think if anything else dramatic really happened during it. I don't really think it did. And no, that was the weekend. So, yeah, credit to the Canadian Grand Prix. It normally delivers. Fantastic to see you two guys. Obviously, by the time this podcast is sent out, you will be back home. So if I say, I hope you have a safe trip home, it's sort of futile. Like, I hope you had a safe trip home. But then if you didn't have a safe trip home, then you probably wouldn't be listening to our podcast right now. So it's sort of a dull ending, really. On to the next one. Nothing else really to report. And speak to you after Austria. Ciao, ciao, ciao.
Okay, so Paul he said it's the rules, the rules. So I was saying, like, is there a delta that Yuki could have overtaken Oscar and, like, if he'd have slowed down enough? But what Paul's saying is, no, it's black and white, rules are rules. So I guess you do have to form a train behind a stricken car to avoid a penalty, which does seem a bit nuts. But see, that's why we have Paul on, because he's got the rule book in his head, maybe, sort of.
Exactly. We also failed on one other thing. We didn't actually introduce Paul. We're so out of our...
I wouldn't worry. Just crack on and play whatever he sent over for the second one.
No. I've not really been too honest, because that wasn't really all that was to talk about in Montreal. So, any new listeners to the pod will have to go back...
Oh no.
to the previous time in Montreal where me and the
no.
guys had some beers, and
No.
sadly, Mr. Robert Vale turned out couldn't drink for love nor money. It was an embarrassing, shocking performance by Rob.
No.
And any regular listener would know that actually me and the Sap really ran this for as long as we possibly could. But anyway, it's sort of not about Rob, this next bit, because bizarrely, the Sap man, Cola-Pint-o, decided that he was actually going to be worse than Rob.
No.
And actually skip rounds and skip beers. And not only that, and I will back Rob all day long for the fact he was drinking much stronger drinks than what me and Sap were on the first occasion. But on this occasion, the Sap was having Coors Light. I mean, I like a Coors Light. It's crisp, refreshing, and from the hills. But it is what it says. It's sort of light. So to skip one, albeit a bit gassy, especially when Rob's drinking straight Stella, I think needs Stuart's investigation, is my way of thinking. What sort of man would sit there, berate Mr. Vale, and absolutely make his life pretty much hell on this podcast due to the fact he seemingly can't drink, yet only a matter of months later, the next time we reconvene, sort of do worse?
No.
So I'm going to sort of hand this back over now to Rob to, let's say get the ball rolling on the. And I don't like bullying. I don't like people being victimised. But on this occasion, you have brought it completely on yourself, and you deserve everything that is about to come your way. And do not be mistaken. This will continue for races to come. You are a disgrace. You are an embarrassment. And honestly, in terms of being the only American person on the pod, you have really, really flown a low flag. So roll on the next few races, Mr. Brian Cola-Pint-o.
Do you want to explain how you came up with that name and how we all loved it, myself included?
Yes, I'm just going to sit here with my smug, happy face on, knowing that I've redeemed myself by A, drinking myself to a higher standard of drinking this time, and then B, watching you skip around, which was just, I just saw Paul's eyes go when you skipped around. It was just, I could see it in his face. He was like, what? What are you doing? So then it kind of just hit me that Cola-Pint-o has been at the back of the grid and been going quite slowly, and it's kind of got the word pint in the end of the name. So we just crowned Brian Cola-Pint-o for being a slow drinker. Yeah, I'm not going to add anything. I'm just going to sit here being smug.
No, those are the facts. I was one round short at the end of the night. Were we there for 6 hours? Maybe.
So? All three of us were.
Yeah, I know.
You got
I
nothing.
deserve it. Franco,
you got nothing.
Franco over here deserves it. Oh, boy. I'll redeem myself 2 years from now. 2 years from now. I almost want to fly you guys in and have another evening together just to undo that as fast as possible. All right. Moving on from the embarrassment that is that. Can I just give one Sunday night quick shout out, and then we'll close up the episode with fantasy and some standings and casino. Okay. We met Sunday night John from the F1 podcast, Canada's leading Formula One podcast. We have traded notes over the years. We met each other in Canada 2 years ago, and we may have given Jonathan some grief for spilling some stuff on us when we took a picture together. And we undid all of that, and we had a wonderful time, as friends would do, podcasters would do. And the Brass Door, we may have been there a little too long as well Sunday night, but we had a great time. It was great to see John, and thank you for connecting with us and making that happen. So that was a lot of fun.
Right. Let's wrap this up. We're nearly 90 minutes in here. So very, very quickly then, drivers' standings. Piastri now extends his lead. He's 22 clear of Lando. Lando's 21
Max.
Clear of Max. So he's actually closer to Max than Oscar now. And George is up
19.
in fourth. Charles is just broken the ton. He's 104 points now in fifth. Constructors, McLaren, despite that, are still looking dominant, but Mercedes with the double podium have jumped up into second above Ferrari. So Mercedes on 199 to McLaren's 374, and Ferrari on 183 with Red Bull 162. From the casino games that we forgot to do last week, so we went live under a tree in the shade before the race.
That was so
and we
much
did
fun,
it.
by the way. Can I
That
just
was
say,
so
having a beer, looking at the lake under a tree at the F1 event. Oh man, we should do that every week.
So we spanned the ball on Brian's phone, and it came out with position 19, which really screwed us because we both picked someone, but it doesn't matter because there were only 18 finished classified finishers, so nobody got the 19th spot there. Blackjack, Brian beat me. I had Hajar and Sainz, and I took a solitary point for Sainz, whereas Brian had Albon and Alonso, so Alonso's 6 points gives him the blackjack hand. And Brian also beat me in 3-card poker. He had Ollie, Bortoletto, and Cola-Pint-o. Look at, oh yes, that's so brilliant that you picked him. I'm always happy to lose there. You didn't get any in the right order, but Cola-Pinto and Bortoletto finished together, whereas I had Albon, Sainz, and Hajar, and none of those were anywhere near each other. So, yeah, do you want to do a quick fantasy and then we'll wrap this one up?
I do. I will just say this. It was a disaster of a week for me. We referenced this briefly. Rob kind of stayed with a common sense team, which was a smart move. He debated going very big changes, and he's like, nah, I'm going to kind of keep it like it is. I, on the other hand, was apparently high on my own McLaren supply, and I went with Oscar because I'm like, oh, I've got budget. Look at me, big budget guy. I'm going to take Oscar, Lando, and McLaren. Triple McLaren. Triple McLaren. I went triple McLaren, Rob. Why did I go triple McLaren? And then I went with Racing Bulls. Did Liam Lawson finish the race? No. How'd Isaac do? Not too good. So it was a disaster of a week for me with, I think, 83 points. But let's talk about the people who knew what they were doing. Team DLV, Mark, 211 points. Mark, my man, nice job. Zuzukis from Petros in second. High fives from CD in third. Stay frosty, Carl. Hammer time, boys. Michael, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, 1. You did win in sixth place, Michael. The Quilla Racing Team, Andre. No Fuel, Sergio. Park Firm A with John. And finally, in 10th this week, Franklin Cappuccino from Matt. And then what that means
is that a play on Cola-Pint-o?
Probably. It should be a play on Cola-Pint-o. That's me. I'm Cola-Pint-o. I'm a Pinto behindo. The top three after the Canadian Grand Prix in the league, L Plan 1, Andrea. 44th Gear, Gavin. And Box 1, Patrick.
Nice one. Right. We have no idea what we're doing next week because there isn't a race. But what I do know is I'm going to hang up on this and probably go to sleep. It was an amazing weekend, Sat. It was brilliant to spend the weekend with you again. We had such good fun. We probably forgot more than we could as we tried to describe our way through the weekend, but just absolutely an amazing weekend. And like you said earlier, anybody that can go to a race, just go. It's amazing. More than you can think happens in and around. It's not just the racing on track. It's just amazing to be there and smell the fuel and burning tire rubber.
But just, if you're going to Canada, be prepared to walk 22 miles because it's a lot of walking. It's worth it. But yeah, it's amazing. Had the best time. Rob, thank you for being so much fun and a great colleague and co-part to do this with. I had a lot of fun, man. This was we got to do this more often. So we need a sponsor. If you're looking to sponsor the Dirty Side of the Track, just let us know. But with that, we thank you for listening. We'll talk to you in 1 week's time.
Cola-Pint-o.